UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Gastelum, aka UFC Vegas 34. Welcome to another UFC prediction and analysis video by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by the name of Zan. I go by the name of Harris, and as usual, we are giving you our fight-by-fight breakdown, fight-by-fight analysis, specifically from the betting perspective, here to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights you want to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning their respective fight. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you may even get a little bit of parlay action as well. On this fight night, we only have 11 bouts as there was some last minute cancellations. So we are going to get right to it. Actually, before we get to it, of course, subscribe to the channel at Boxing MMA Picks. Hit the thumbs up on the video, participate in the comments. We want to have some good conversation on there. Like I said, we have 11 fights on this card. We have 6 fights on the prelims. So we are going to get right to it, starting with fight number 1, Sasha Palatnikov taking on Ramiz Brahimaj. I'm going to start with this breakdown here with Sasha Palatnikov. He lost his last fight to Impa Kasanganay. That was back in April. It's a pretty long, rangy striker. He's going to use his kicks. Definitely include the calf kick in there. Moves pretty decently. He's going to be the fighter that's going to be fighting from the outside. Takedown defense concerns me a little bit. I think about that Impa Kasanganay fight. Impa was able to land some takedowns in his first attempt, but Sasha Palatnikov did show, a decent clinch, showed some takedown defense for the remainder of that fight. But that first takedown was a little concerning to me. And Brahimaj, on the other hand, he lost to Max Griffin. That was back in November 2020. That was his UFC debut. So it's been quite a while since his last fight. Decent striker, mainly hands though. Decent boxing, decent in and out movement. He's going to mix in some kicks, so he's not necessarily a one-dimensional type of striker. Has some wrestling ability as well. Pretty aggressive on top. I've seen him look for choke opportunities as well. Wasn't really able to show that in his UFC debut. That was versus Max Griffin. But that was more so due to the ability of Max Griffin to move well in that fight, and obviously to have the wrestling ability that he has, as opposed to any kind of inability of Ramiz Brahimaj to land takedowns. This one is a little hard to judge because it is two relatively lower level fighters, or fighters who maybe are just not there yet. Don't really see that it factor with Sasha Palatnikov. I don't really think he has that sort of possessing style of stand-up where he's going to sort of take over. And I don't really think he offers much outside of the stand-up. So for that reason, I'm actually going to go with Ramiz Brahimaj on this one. I think he's going to use the different tools that he has. I think he's going to pull the win out. And I think Ramiz Brahimaj is going to be my pick.
Yeah. Okay. So you pretty much hit everything. What I see from Sasha Palatnikov, well-rounded guy. He's pretty much decent everywhere. He's not really a specialist in any specific area. And I think that's where Brahimaj is going to get him here with his wrestling. I think, I know Brahimaj in his first fight, he fought, I think was it Griffin? Griffin's not that easy to take down. And Griffin has very good movement. I think this is a fight where Palatnikov kind of fights on his front foot. And I think that's going to be easy for the takedowns, right? So I'm going to go with Ramiz as well. I think the wrestling's going to be a factor here. I don't think Palatnikov has good takedown defense.
Sounds good to me. So let's move on to fight number 2. In that case, we have Roosevelt Roberts taking on Ignacio Bahamondes. I'm going to break this one down first as well. Ultimately, I mean, these are two long fighters for this lightweight division. 6'2" on the side of Roosevelt Roberts, 6'3" on the side of Ignacio Bahamondes. Bahamondes is going to have the 2.5-inch reach advantage. And typically it's Roosevelt Roberts that is the taller and rangier fighter. So it's going to be interesting to see both of these guys go up against somebody that is just as tall as each other. Roosevelt Roberts, his last fight was ruled a no contest. That was back in September 2020. He lost that fight, though. That was versus Kevin Croom. That was a no contest due to marijuana usage on the side of Kevin Croom. So I pretty much count those as the respective situation that happened. So I'm going to count that as a loss, despite it being a no contest. So he's basically on a 2-fight losing streak, Roosevelt Roberts. And those are 2 fights that he was big favorites in. And we're obviously seeing as a result, Vegas is not going to make him a big favorite again in this one. He's only a minus 140. But when you look at his ability, he's still a pretty clean, high level striker. Still has a good long jab, still has quick kicks, good striking speed overall. And I think he has good IQ with his combinations as well. With Bahamondes, he lost to John Makdessi. That was back in April. That was via split decision. I thought he lost that fight. So, I can definitely agree with the decision that happened. He, on his side, has pretty good kickboxing, almost more of a Thai kickboxing type of style. Good snap on both his punches and his kicks, and definitely uses that length. But I will say, for anyone that is taking a look or considering betting on this fight, I'm going to refer back to that Ignacio Bahamondes versus John Makdessi fight, as I think that it's somewhat indicative of how this fight will go. So I do expect both guys to stay on the feet. I do expect Roosevelt Roberts to control the center of the cage, the way that Makdessi controlled the center, while Bahamondes is going to be fighting from the outside. I expect Roosevelt Roberts to have the better hands, the way that John Makdessi did. I expect Roosevelt Roberts really just to have the overall better striking than Bahamondes, again, the way Makdessi was able to have. And I think the difference here is that Roosevelt Roberts actually, again, matches Bahamondes from that length, from that height perspective. So he even has that working more in his advantage as opposed to John Makdessi, who was being effective even as the shorter fighter. So I look a lot to that fight as the blueprint. Like I mentioned, in that fight, John Makdessi won via split decision. I thought John Makdessi won that fight as well. I can see Roosevelt Roberts being sort of a crisper, faster, longer version of what John Makdessi was able to do. And for that reason, Roosevelt Roberts is going to be my pick. I also think that he's looking to redeem himself. Like I said, 2 losses in a row. He was undefeated at the time, or no, he wasn't. Never mind. The other one was a no contest. But nonetheless, he can't really afford to lose 3 matches in a row at this point. I think he's going to come out hungrier, smarter, and I think he's going to get the job done.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think 2021 is going to be a better year for Roosevelt Roberts. In this fight, though, I'm not sure as far as a stand-up. Ignacio looks like he has, to me, he has more tools on the feet. But what I like about Roberts in this fight, I think Roberts is going to be able to grapple in this fight. Roberts has fought way better fighters. If you look at the records of the fighters they both have faced, it's not even close. So this is 100% a step down in terms of competition for Roosevelt. And I think the UFC is giving him a shot. I think that the UFC wants him to win here. And I think this is where he's going to win, because Ignacio, again, yeah, look, we're going to go look at his who he's fought. 6-1, 5-2, 7-1. Then after that, 0-3, 3-1. Like his record isn't good, right? So I'm going to go with Roosevelt Roberts. I like his grappling. I think he could get a submission in this fight. I think his grappling is way better. As far as the stand-up, I think Bahamondes is slightly better, but I don't think you can compare how much of an advantage Roosevelt has on the ground and the wrestling as well. So yeah, Roosevelt's my pick.
Sounds good. Let's move on to fight number 3. In this case, we have a fight that I definitely want no part of from a betting perspective. We have William Knight taking on Fabio Cherant. How do you feel about this one?
Man, I want to be quick. I like William Knight in this fight. As far as Fabio Cherant, I'm not sure what we're going to get here. Against Alonzo Menafield looked like GSP in that fight, getting the fight easily to the mat. I never seen Alonzo Menafield go that route. He must have felt him. He must have felt that he can get that takedown so easy. But William Knight's a far better wrestler than Alonzo Menafield. And if you want to look at one match that they both had, MMA math 100% does not work. But William Knight, when he fought Alexa Kelleher, he put a beating on that guy. And when Fabio Cherant fought Alexa Kelleher gave him a flying knee. then ground and pound, got the finish. I mean, math doesn't work, but in this fight, I think William Knight's going to be able to keep it close. I don't think Fabio Cherant has that slick of a stand-up to keep it on the feet and fight from a distance where he probably has the better striking, because William Knight is very rudimentary with his striking. But I could see William Knight getting him locked up against the cage, William Knight getting this to the mat, doing enough to win the rounds. And yeah, he's my pick here. I think this could go decision, but these are big boys, so there's a good chance someone's getting knocked out. But William Knight's my pick.
Yeah, and I'll keep it short as well. William Knight is also going to be my pick. I think, you pretty much mentioned all the important factors in this fight. I think Fabio Cherant probably or definitely, I would say, has the advantage in the stand-up, because I don't think William Knight's stand-up is that good. But Fabio Cherant can definitely be taken down. I mean, to your point, Alonzo Menafield, we've never seen that out of him before. And he made it look easy. Fabio Cherant can be taken down. I've seen his fights in other promotions as well. And again, I've seen him taken down pretty easily. And again, like I said, with William Knight, although his stand-up is not as good, he does intentionally use that calf kick. I think about Cherant's other fights. I watched his fight versus Myron Dennis, going back to LFA. Myron Dennis was able to land that calf kick over and over again on Fabio Cherant, and William Knight uses that. So I can see that happening. Again, like I said, Cherant can definitely be taken down. And William Knight, we've seen him be a fighter who can land a takedown in any given round. Although his cardio is not that good, he does have that ability. And William Knight, although, again, the stand-up might not be as good, he still has that one-punch power to land and make a difference. Although, again, I definitely won't bet on this, but I think when you just sort of stack the cards and take a look at what's in front of us, William Knight should get the job done here. I don't think minus 230 is too steep. Again, personally, I don't want to bet on it, but if you're feeling it, then by all means, go for it and make that pick. But I'm definitely going to stay away from this fight. Two big boys. I know these guys are only 205, but the way their bodies look, they might as well be heavyweights. So this is pretty much a heavyweight beware in my eyes. Let's move on to fight number 4. We have Bea Malecki taking on Josiane Nunes. I'm going to keep this one pretty short. Bea Malecki, she hasn't fought since a year and a half. She's actually 2-0 in the UFC. We see her record there at 4-0. She's going to have a huge height and reach advantage in this fight. We know the recorded advantages are going to be 7 inches in height, 7 inches in reach as well. I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually a little bit more than what's recorded here. But Bea Malecki, she's a pretty long striker. She likes to come forward. She kind of marches you down, has that Thai style. She's going to include push kicks, front kicks. She was actually on the Swedish national team, the national Muay Thai team. So she does have decorated Muay Thai striking ability to her. The hands are okay, good counter jab using her reach. Again, going to be that longer Thai style of fighter. For Josiane Nunes, on the other hand, it's her UFC debut. I know that she was supposed to fight Zara Farn. That was back in April, but that fight was called off. She's a southpaw, kind of wild. Not really much to say about Josiane Nunes. Not even much footage out on her. Pretty green in the stand-up from what I was seeing. Somewhat of a brawler type. Has power, though. 4 of her 7 wins have come via punches or TKO. Seems to be a bit of a grappler, though. A lot of submission attempts. Even in compromised positions, she's going to go for those submission attempts. But I don't know. I mean, this one is hard because you don't really know where either girl is at from a skill perspective. Again, it's been a while for Bea Malecki. Has she learned a new skill set? Why has she taken that time off? I'm not 100% sure of that. When I look at Bea Malecki, she is hittable in punching exchanges. She doesn't really have the best head movement once there is some engagement going on. I think that's really the only spot that I can see Josiane Nunes catching her. Otherwise, I think Malecki is supposed to get the job done here. I think she'll use her height and reach to her advantage. I think she has the better technical striking, and I think that's ultimately what's going to pull the victory out for her. So Bea Malecki, minus 150, not too mad at it. If these were 2 higher level fighters, this is something I would probably make a bet on, but can't really take that chance with the level that both of these fighters are at. But nonetheless, Malecki is my pick.
Yeah, this is tough. This is a tough matchup. I'll be honest. The underdog is a live dog in this fight. She's wild and she can catch anyone. And she does have power. She can finish the fight with strikes. And yeah, she does have some grappling in her as well. So she's Brazilian. So there's that concern where she might just have a big advantage in the grappling against Malecki. But you can't ignore that reach. You can't ignore that size. I'm not going to put a single bet on this fight because I really think Josiane Nunes, I think this is a 50-50 fight. But for the channel, I'm going to go with Malecki. She's shown me heart. She's shown me the ability to come back. She showed me that she can go 3 rounds in a high-paced fight. So I'm going to go Malecki here. She's the better striker. And she's going to be big. She's going to be hard to kind of get in on takedowns if Malecki uses that distance that she has, that reach that she has. So I'm going to go Malecki here. But again, Josiane Nunes, I think, is a live dog that can definitely pull this off. And I wouldn't be surprised. There's something telling me that she might pull this off. But I'm going to still go Malecki. But I'm not dropping a single coin on this fight.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I agree with the extra commentary to say do not bet on this fight. It's too hard to tell with fighters of at this level, and fighters where, again, on the side of Nunes, she can catch you at any point in time. So I definitely would recommend staying away from that. To your point, the dog is live, but I don't even really think the dog pays enough to go out and make a pick on the dog. So probably want to stay away from this one completely, but nonetheless, let's move on to fight number 5. We have Brian Kelleher taking on Domingo Pilarte. How do you feel about this one?
Domingo, he's one of those guys that I feel he's really big for the division. He has good grappling, long fighter. But I just think Kelleher, I think that right now, I think Kelleher is in a position where you can get this into the later rounds, where Pilarte isn't the best with the cardio. This is another tough fight to call, but I'm gonna go with Brian Kelleher having better cardio, and I think he has good wrestling. And I think when it comes to the stand-up, they're pretty close, but Kelleher can definitely put on a pace, and I think it's a close fight. But I'm gonna bank on the experience in Kelleher here. He has some good wins on his record. Hunter Zur, Odi Osborne, Ray Rodriguez. He's only lost to Ricky Simone, Cody Stamen, Montel Jackson, and John Lineker, and Marlon Vera. So those are his last losses. But yeah, I'm going to go with Kelleher. I think the experience is going to be a big factor here. And yeah, I think he has him here as it gets to the later rounds.
Yeah, I'm going to also go with Brian Kelleher. When I looked at these fighters, I mean, what I noticed, of course, going back to Brian Kelleher's style, I mean, he's tough, right? Decent stand-up, definitely willing to engage. Has some pop, especially in that left hook, I should say. Decent calf kick as well. He even switched stance periodically. I wouldn't say Brian Kelleher is necessarily the highest quality striker, but he can definitely hold his own, sort of make it dirty. And of course, you have to respect his power, and you also have to respect his finishing ability, right? 22 professional wins, 18 finishes. 8 of those are KO, TKO, 10 of those are submissions. And in terms of the submission, he likes to look for that guillotine opportunity. So he has a number of guillotine finishes on his record. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a strong wrestler, but won't really hesitate to shoot or to look for clinch situations. If he is taken down, he can scramble. We saw that in the Ricky Simone fight, and obviously we know who Ricky Simone is from a wrestling perspective, or at least from a wrestling attempt perspective. With Domingo Pilarte, again, year and a half since his last fight. His last fight was ruled a no contest. That was back in February. He lost to Journey Newson, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he got knocked out in 38 seconds in that fight. And Journey Newson was tested positive for marijuana in that fight. So like I said, those types of no contests, I'm still going to count as the result itself. And Journey Newson touched him within 38 seconds. I think that's an important factor in this fight because with Kelleher, important to note, Kelleher's last couple of fights, he was competing at 145. he was competing at featherweight. This fight is now at 135 as a bantamweight, of course. Kelleher had that pop at 145. I definitely think that pop will translate down to 135. And I think if Pilarte was able to be touched by Journey Newson, I wouldn't be surprised if Kelleher is able to do the same thing here. So, a few ways that I can see Kelleher winning. You mentioned the point where he can sort of out cardio him and out tough him and sort of drag the fight on. I also wouldn't be surprised if Kelleher got him out of there in round one. Not to say bet on the knockout, but I wouldn't be surprised if that knockout happens in the first round. So a few different ways in which I can see Kelleher winning this fight. So he is ultimately going to be my pick for this fight as well. Let's move on to our final fight of the prelims. In that case, match number 6, we have Austin Lingo taking on Luis Saldaña. I'm going to break this one down, starting with Luis Saldaña. He beat Jordan Griffin. That was back in his last fight back in April. He's actually on a 5-fight win streak now. You see his record there, 15 wins, 6 losses. Pretty fast, crisp calf kicks was the first thing that I noticed about him going back to his Dana White Contender Series fight. I noticed the last thing in his last fight versus Jordan Griffin as well. Stands at range, he'll switch stance, pretty methodical, picks his strikes, a lot of kicks in general, very leg-heavy attack, a good counter check hook as well that comes after that low calf kick. He does throw one at a time, though, so that's one thing that I noticed about him. And probably the most glaring thing that I noticed about him is that he does kind of leave that chin up after both punches and kicks. So that's something where, you can catch him with that. Jordan Griffin did give him a pretty high pace, had him backpedaling a lot, had him dealing with the clinch, had him dealing with the takedown. Definitely a path to score some points against Saldaña. But Saldaña, of course, does have some jiu-jitsu, so he's not clueless down there. It's not an obvious path, but I noticed that from Jordan Griffin, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's sort of a blueprint on how to score some points against Luis Saldaña. But moving on to Austin Lingo, he beat Jacob Kilburn back in January. He closes distance pretty decently, a bit of a march you down type of style in him. We saw him chase down and successfully cut the ring off at times in his Yusuf Zalal fight. And we know how well Yusuf Zalal moves around the ring. So for Lingo to be able to do that, that's definitely a good thing. A good tight boxing stance. I mean, you can see it in his punches, keeps his chin tucked, pretty decent hands overall. Showed some signs of okay takedown defense in that Yusuf Zalal fight, although I don't think that's really a factor in this fight at all. I don't even think it's really worth sort of analyzing the ground game in this fight because I do think this will stay on the feet. And I mean, Austin Lingo's used to finishing guys pretty quickly here. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially how this fight goes on early in the fight. Pretty good striking match, though, from what I see. A bit of a contrast in striking style. Obviously, we have Austin Lingo with the hands. We have Luis Saldaña with the feet. I do like the hands, though, in this particular striking clash. I think that Austin Lingo has a style that could catch Saldaña, especially with how I mentioned the biggest thing that I noticed about Saldaña is his striking defense, the way that he sets it up, the way that he leaves his chin up. I think that is a recipe for disaster in terms of Austin Lingo being able to catch him. And I think even if Austin Lingo doesn't necessarily land the big punch, just the fact that he's going to be the one coming forward, at least based on what I anticipate, he's going to be the one coming forward. The hands sometimes, look better than the feet in terms of the combinations in the judges' eyes. I wouldn't be surprised if Austin Lingo just kind of wins 2 of the 3, if not all 3 rounds. Or I wouldn't be surprised if Austin Lingo is able to catch him early because he does have some pop. But either way, I'm actually going to go with the underdog here for the final fight of the prelims. Plus 115, Austin Lingo is my pick.
Yeah, this we got a good scrap on our hands here. With Saldaña, when he fought Jordan Griffith, I was heavy on Jordan Griffith, and I felt that was one of the biggest robberies in the UFC. Austin Lingo, he looked good in his last fight, looked really good against Jacob Kilburn. But I think it's going to be a different matchup. I think for Austin Lingo to get success here, I think he's going to have to incorporate a lot of grappling or tying up against the cage. I think in open, if they're in the octagon and they're in open range, I believe that Saldaña could potentially pick him apart. I believe he has the better striking. I think that, especially at range. So I think Lingo needs to get in. Lingo needs to make this a dirty fight. If this is a technical fight, I think he's in trouble. I'm picking Saldaña. I think that he's gonna have enough to keep it on the feet. He just fought Griffin, and Griffin is a much better wrestler than Austin Lingo. But Austin Lingo can wrestle. But I think that this is an easier fight for him to keep it on the feet and showcase that stand-up. I think his stand-up is far better than Austin Lingo. So, yeah, I'm going to go Luis Saldaña. And Lingo hasn't been finished since when he was an amateur. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets finished this weekend. But I'm going to go with Luis Saldaña for the win.
Okay, I'm not mad at that. Obviously, the odds are pretty close on that. So for us to split up on the final fight of the prelim, not too surprising there. But let's take it to Vegas. In that case, let's see what we're actually willing to put a little bit of coin on. Of course, considering just the preliminary card for now. In terms of an underdog pick or two, who would you be looking at?
I'm not looking at anyone as far as underdogs on this card here.
Yeah.
On the prelim? Yeah, I'm not really seeing much.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all.
But if I have to pick for the channel, I'll go Josiane Nunes.
Okay, let's go with that. So Josiane Nunes plus 125 as an underdog pick. My underdog pick was going to be Austin Lingo. So again, I think his hands sort of gets the job done in this one. I think his pressure as well could get it done. But to your point, Saldaña could be able to handle that properly and potentially pick him apart. I can definitely see that happening as well. But plus 110 Austin Lingo, I kind of like his odds there. In terms of a favorite pick or two, who would you be looking at?
Favorite pick, I like I like Roosevelt Roberts. And I'm going to go with my boy, Ramiz Brahimaj.
All right, so we have Ramiz Brahimaj minus 138, Roosevelt Roberts minus 150. Two-fight parlay would be plus 187, I should say, meaning that $100 will return $287 for our bigger bettors. $250 will return $719. In terms of my favorite pick on this one, this is an interesting card because a lot of the odds are closer. So I think that's sort of a sign for me to be a little bit more conservative here. I definitely want to include Roosevelt Roberts on that one. Part of me wants to include Malecki, but again, I'm going to stay on the conservative side, and I'm actually only going to offer up Roosevelt Roberts from that perspective. So that's a minus 150. Up to you if you want to make a straight up bet on that or not, or perhaps you want to wait until our main card video comes out in order to parlay that with whoever the favorite pick or two is from our main card video. But I'm actually going to leave it at just that in terms of my favorite pick of this undercard, of this preliminary card, I should say. And of course, on that note, we are going to sign off. Please, again, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, hit the thumbs up, and participate in the comments. Let us know which picks you are considering for this prelim card for UFC Vegas 34. Let us know how you feel about our picks. And again, any specific additional analysis that you want on your specific picks, let it be known in the comments, and we're always more than happy to do so. Like I said, we are going to sign off on that note. This has been the UFC Vegas 34, aka UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Gastelum preliminary card prediction video. He goes by the name of Zan. I go by the name of Harris. We are boxing MMA picks, and in our usual fashion, let's get this money.
Let's do it.